So today my discussion board post is going to be on Jerry Falwell. His name is something that should be very familiar to you. His name is actually the name of our library where we do a lot of research, as well as he's the founder of Liberty University. His son, Jerry Falwell Jr., is actually our current president here. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on in my post today is called Majority Movement. It began in 1979 by Jerry Falwell. And kind of the basis of this movement is that you have evangelical Christians who are looking at America as a moral, corrupt society that is full of sin. I kind of think of it as them seeing America almost as a Sodom and Gomorrah, almost something that's just so far past what the Bible states that they're like almost in no hope, but they're hoping that they can be the ones to kind of reel Americans back in and kind of look at what the Bible states and what Jesus is asking of Christians and to kind of convert them as best as they can. So a couple things are happening through the decade of the 70s. You have abortion, you have gay rights, women's rights. You just have a lot of things happening that are big, are unique almost. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's just a lot of things that are almost sinful in the eyes of these evangelicals, and they're hoping that they can kind of convert these Americans back to the ways of religion. So the moral majority headquarters are actually in Lynchburg, Virginia. So one of the reasons I think that it was there was the fact that Liberty was in Lynchburg and that Jerry Falwell's church was there. He was the pastor of a church. His church was called Thomas Road Baptist Church. And in 1976, he organized a rally called I Love America, and it was to celebrate the nation's bicentennial. So, evangelical, Jerry Falwell was an evangelical. His main focus was the Bible, and he almost saw himself as a disciple for God. So he was doing what he thought by creating institutions and by converting people to Christianity and saving lost souls for Jesus. So two big things that were going on with Jerry Falwell during this time period was you have his church. It blew up in sizes of numbers. He had a lot of people coming in. And one of the things that kind of helped that was his television program. So I actually read in my research that his television program had more programs than Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show, which to me is like incredible. That's so big. And so I think these things definitely brought him to the public eye. And so he kind of used that to his advantage by kind of getting into politics a bit. So a couple things that he publicly announced when it came to his views on things. You have the Roe versus Wade. So Roe versus Wade is a court case that is looking at the idea of abortion, and Jerry Falwell publicly stated that he was pro-life. So this kind of brought him a lot of backlash. But Roe versus Wade was also a case that kind of saw it was like a turning point almost in when it came to not only this movement but Christians, because that was the moment when they were like, oh no, something needs to be done or it might get worse. So that's kind of when he was like, I've got to step up and take a stand. I've got to say how I feel, and I give him credit for that. So another thing that he was openly expressive on was the school system. So the school system said that prayer was considered unconstitutional, and he was definitely outspoken on that. And I think that kind of brought him more recognition. And he was also really involved during the Ronald Reagan presidency. But in 1989, at the end of Ronald Reagan's presidency, he actually announced the disbandment of the movement. He kind of felt that he had reached his goal in kind of bringing Americans to the place that they needed to be at in that time. And so at that point he was like, I've done what I've come to do, and I think that now's the time to move on and do something different and see what else God is asking of us. So I think that these are interesting facts that kind of show us a little bit more about Liberty's history, and thank you for your time.